Jimin sick? Jungkook's 28th birthday overshadowed by his deepest sadness shock rippled across the global BTS community when whispers emerged that Park Jimin, one of the group's most beloved members, was unwell at the very moment when Jungkook should have been celebrating one of the brightest milestones of his career, his 28th birthday. How could a day intended to radiate joy, warmth, and international celebration suddenly turn into a portrait of silence, concern, and restrained emotion? Fans worldwide are now asking the same haunting question. Was Jungkook truly able to enjoy his birthday while knowing that his brother-in-arms, Jimin, was facing health struggles? The image of Jungkook smiling during his live stream on Weverse on September 1st seemed, at first glance, to encapsulate all the energy, gratitude, and playfulness that have always defined him. He thanked his parents with heartfelt sincerity. He joked about a chipped tooth caused by his new piercing, and he extended warm wishes to fans who shared the same birthday as him. Yet behind his bright eyes and polished composure, attentive fans noticed moments of hesitation, brief pauses, faint sighs, and a certain gravity in his tone whenever he mentioned his fellow members. The absence of Jimin during such a pivotal celebration did not go unnoticed. Why is this significant? Because Jungkook and Jimin have long been perceived not just as colleagues, but as brothers, forged through years of shared struggle, artistic growth, and countless personal sacrifices. The thought of Jungkook celebrating alone while Jimin's health remained uncertain struck an emotional chord among ARMY across continents. Social media timelines, instead of being filled solely with birthday greetings, began to overflow with questions, speculation, and heartfelt messages of support directed equally toward Jungkook and Jimin. The celebrations themselves were monumental. Across the world, cities lit up with LED screens flashing Jungkook's face and birthday greetings. In New York, Times Square illuminated with digital tributes. In Tokyo, Sapporo's TV tower glowed purple for 20 minutes in honor of him. In Thailand, tuk-tuks roamed decorated in his image, while in India, giant billboards in Kolkata beamed his name. Fans across China, Mexico, Hungary, the Philippines, Russia, Kazakhstan, and beyond engineered massive projects that transformed Jungkook's birthday into a global festival. And yet, the grand spectacle only sharpened the underlying contrast. How can one of the most celebrated artists in the world feel whole when one of his closest companions might not be well enough to share in the joy? Jungkook's own words during his live stream added fuel to the emotional tension. While thanking ARMY for their unwavering loyalty, he spoke of health more than once, almost as if his gratitude toward life and his parents was interwoven with an unspoken plea for strength, not just for himself, but for those around him. The remark, "I'll try my best to live healthier," resonated with haunting weight given the rumors about Jimin's condition. Fans could not help but interpret it as an indirect reference, a subtle acknowledgement of how fragile well-being can be, even for idols who appear invincible under the global spotlight. Meanwhile, the absence of Jimin on such a day became a louder statement than any words could convey. Normally, members of BTS are known for their public displays of support toward one another during milestones. Whether through surprise messages, appearances, or even playful teasing, their bond has always been celebrated as one of the group's greatest strengths. The silence this year was striking, and in its stillness, it left room for speculation, worry, and deep sadness among fans. Could it be that Jimin's health truly prevented him from joining in any form of celebration? Even digitally, Jungkook, though surrounded by the dazzling lights of global tributes, appeared to carry an invisible weight. Observers noted that while he remained cheerful and interactive during his broadcast, his expressions occasionally dimmed, particularly when reflecting on personal matters. He even issued a stern warning about intruders attempting to enter his home, a reminder that fame often brings with it invasion and loneliness. For a star who thrives on connection, the combination of public intrusion and private concern for a sick friend could only deepen the gravity of his mood. The paradox of the day was heartbreaking. On one side, Jungkook was immortalized across billboards, LED screens, and fan projects spanning continents. On the other, he was quietly overshadowed by worry and perhaps even guilt, the kind of guilt that arises when joy feels undeserved in the face of another's suffering. This duality captured the attention of fans and media alike, sparking discussions that turned Jungkook's birthday from a celebration into a moment of collective reflection about loyalty, vulnerability, and the human side of global superstars. Online platforms such as Reddit and Twitter became emotional gathering spaces. Thousands of fans shared not only birthday wishes, but also prayers for Jimin's recovery. Messages such as, "I hope Jungkook feels the love even if his heart is heavy," and "Jimin's health is our biggest wish right now," painted the digital landscape with a tone that was both celebratory and somber. The love for Jungkook was undeniable, but it became interwoven with an equally powerful concern for Jimin. The intensity of global support projects contrasted with the intimate atmosphere of Jungkook's live stream. In one moment, fans were watching him unveil his piercing and laugh lightheartedly about mishaps, while in another, they were reminded of his vulnerability when he addressed personal boundaries and safety. The oscillation between joy and seriousness only deepened the perception that this birthday was unlike any other. It was not merely about candles, cakes, or music. It was about resilience in the face of absence, about loyalty between brothers, and about how even the brightest stars can feel the shadow of worry. AS fans continue to process the emotional weight of this dual narrative, Jungkook's global birthday celebrations and Jimin's concerning absence. One question echoes louder than any billboard. How do idols navigate moments when public triumph collides with private sorrow? For Jungkook, the answer seemed to lie in his decision to push forward with gratitude, to remain present for ARMY, and to accept the love pouring in from every corner of the globe, even while carrying a heavy heart. This year, his 28th birthday will be remembered not just for its unprecedented scale of global tributes, but also for the silent reminder that health, brotherhood, and emotional honesty matter more than any spotlight. For ARMY, the celebration was incomplete without Jimin, and for Jungkook, no gift, no billboard, no live stream could substitute for the absence of a friend who has walked beside him since the earliest days of his career. In the end, the world witnessed a birthday overshadowed by concern, a global celebration infused with sadness, and a young man carrying the paradox of fame, adored by millions, yet deeply human, vulnerable, and tied by unbreakable bonds to those he calls family. The story of Jungkook's 28th birthday is no longer just about lights and music. It is about the fragility of joy, the strength of connection, and the profound truth that even at the height of glory, one cannot celebrate fully when a brother is unwell. What makes this moment even more striking is the way the absence of one person can alter the atmosphere of a global event. The sheer scale of Jungkook's birthday celebrations proved that he is a phenomenon reaching far beyond music, culture, and geography. Yet, even as landmarks across continents were covered in his name, the silence around Jimin felt louder than the loudest fireworks. Fans described this paradox as a birthday written in neon lights but shadowed by worry. The emotional intensity is further amplified by the symbolism of birthdays themselves. For Jungkook, who has often spoken about gratitude, responsibility, and his desire to repay the love of ARMY, a birthday is more than a personal milestone. It is a chance to reaffirm his bond with those who have stood beside him. But a bond is never complete without those closest to one's heart. The missing voice of Jimin, the absence of a familiar presence who has often laughed, sung, and cried alongside him, left an invisible fracture across the celebration. Observers cannot ignore how much Jungkook and Jimin's relationship has meant to BTS as a whole. They have been mirrors of one another. Jungkook often portrayed as the golden magne full of energy and ambition, while Jimin has been the stabilizing figure, soft yet firm, pushing him to grow. Their bond has been documented not just in performances, but in countless candid moments over the years. To imagine Jungkook standing in the brightest spotlight of his career without Jimin by his side is to confront the harsh truth of how vulnerable even the strongest connections can be when tested by health, distance, or circumstance. The story of Jungkook's 28th birthday cannot be detached from this duality. Dazzling lights versus quiet absence, overwhelming public adoration versus private concern, the roar of a global crowd versus the silence of a missing brother. For millions who witnessed it unfold, the lesson is painfully clear. Fame does not shield anyone from the fragility of human bonds. It only magnifies them, reminding us that behind every billboard, every live stream, and every global trend lies a human heart that can still ache in silence. For Jungkook, this birthday will forever be remembered not only as a symbol of global admiration but also as the day joy and sorrow collided, proving even idols remain deeply human. The spectacle surrounding Jungkook's 28th birthday has already been recorded as one of the most striking cultural moments of 2025. His global presence was undeniable, his fans were relentless in their devotion, and his live stream brought warmth, humor, and sincerity to millions. Yet beneath the surface of dazzling billboards and worldwide celebrations, a haunting question lingers. Was the event overshadowed by Jimin's alleged illness? And if so, how much of this narrative is grounded in truth? Can the public fully trust the information circulating across platforms, or has the story itself been shaped, exaggerated, or even manipulated to draw maximum attention? The tension is not merely about celebration versus absence. It is about reality versus perception. Did Jungkook truly carry visible sadness in his demeanor, or were his pauses and sighs simply the natural hesitations of a man overwhelmed by adoration? Was Jimin genuinely unwell, or has the narrative of his illness been amplified by the uncontrollable machinery of social media discourse? The questions are pressing, for they do not merely define how one interprets a birthday, but how one understands the nature of truth in the modern digital era. One must consider the sources. Reports about Jimin's health and Jungkook's alleged sorrow stem not from official statements, but from fragmented observations, speculative fan comments, and viral interpretations on platforms such as TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. Are these platforms reliable sources of verified information? Or are they engines of speculation designed to feed emotional intensity rather than factual accuracy? When a fan pauses a live stream and interprets a fleeting facial expression as evidence of hidden pain, should it be accepted as truth, or should it be scrutinized as subjective projection? The emotional investment of fans adds complexity. Millions of ARMY members are deeply connected to BTS members on a personal level, often treating their triumphs and struggles as their own. But does this devotion cloud objective analysis? Can a fan's desire to believe in a dramatic story, Jungkook hiding sadness, Jimin suffering in silence, create a self-sustaining narrative that thrives without confirmation? If the evidence for Jimin's illness remains unverified, should global media continue to amplify it? Or does doing so risk turning rumor into perceived reality? Consider the paradox. Jungkook's birthday was celebrated with unprecedented global visibility, with Times Square lit in his honor, Asian skylines dominated by his image, and social media flooded with tributes. Yet simultaneously, the dominant conversation became not about his triumphs, but about Jimin's absence. Does this shift suggest a natural concern for a beloved member, or does it reveal the media's preference for conflict and drama over straightforward celebration? Is sorrow more profitable than joy in the economy of global attention? The public must also confront the possibility of sensationalism. Could it be that stories of Jimin's illness, amplified without confirmation, serve as fuel for engagement, clicks, shares, and endless discussion? In a digital landscape where attention is currency, can one ever be certain that narratives are not strategically shaped to sustain visibility? What if the supposed sadness of Jungkook was nothing more than a natural human moment, magnified into a global spectacle by those who benefit from keeping audiences emotionally invested? This leads to a deeper moral question. What responsibility lies with the media, with fans, and with content creators who spread such claims? Is it ethical to circulate unverified reports about an individual's health simply because it aligns with a compelling story? Or does doing so compromise both truth and dignity, reducing real human beings into characters in a manufactured drama? The intensity of ARMY's love for BTS is undeniable, but does that intensity create vulnerability, an eagerness to believe anything, no matter how uncertain, as long as it feels emotionally satisfying? Skepticism, therefore, is not merely advisable, it is essential. Readers must ask themselves, what do we actually know, and what do we merely assume? Is Jimin truly sick, or has silence been filled by speculation? Did Jungkook's livestream truly reveal sorrow, or are audiences projecting their own anxieties onto his words and gestures? Has the global media, intentionally or unintentionally, manipulated the narrative to create a more dramatic contrast between celebration and absence? The unsettling reality is that the truth may be less dramatic than the story. Perhaps Jimin was simply unavailable due to personal reasons unrelated to health. Perhaps Jungkook's expressions were simply reflections of fatigue rather than sorrow. If this were the case, would fans and media be willing to accept a less sensational truth? Or would they cling to the more dramatic version because it sustains their emotional engagement? In this sense, the question is no longer about Jungkook or Jimin. It is about the public's relationship to truth itself. One must also reflect on the broader implications. Are we, as global audiences, complicit in constructing hoaxes through our hunger for emotional intensity? Does the repeated act of sharing, speculating, and amplifying transform uncertainty into accepted fact? And if so, what does this say about the credibility of modern media ecosystems, where unverified claims can trend globally within hours? Can any individual, even one as globally influential as Jungkook, escape the gravitational pull of sensationalism once it takes root? The provocation is clear. Is this narrative, Jungkook's sadness, Jimin's illness, a reflection of reality, or is it a mirror reflecting our own desires to consume drama? Are we witnessing truth, or are we co-authoring fiction under the guise of concern? If the latter, what responsibility do we bear in sustaining the very machinery we often criticize for spreading misinformation? Therefore, the call to action is urgent. Readers must confront these questions directly. Do you believe this story is authentic, or do you recognize elements of fabrication? Are you willing to interrogate your own assumptions, or will you allow emotion to dictate belief? Will you demand verification before drawing conclusions, or will you embrace the comfort of a narrative that feels true even if it may not be? The answers are not merely about one birthday, one live stream, or one absent member. They are about the future of media consumption itself. In an age where boundaries between fact and fiction blur daily, critical thinking becomes the only safeguard against manipulation. To consume unverified information passively is to risk becoming an accomplice to hoaxes. To question it is to preserve dignity, truth, and integrity. In conclusion, the story of Jungkook's 28th birthday and Jimin's alleged illness may be remembered not only as an emotional moment in BTS history, but also as a cautionary tale for global audiences. It is a reminder that even when surrounded by billboards, live streams, and international adoration, the line between truth and illusion remains fragile. The ultimate question is not simply about what happened to Jungkook or Jimin, but about us. Will we believe without evidence, or will we pause, reflect, and demand more? The decision, and its consequences, rest not with the idols but with their audience. Yet even after such reflection, another question emerges. Why do audiences so readily accept narratives of tragedy when joy alone should suffice? Is it because happiness, when presented without complication, appears too simple to sustain attention? Or is it because sorrow, absence, and rumor allow us to feel that we are peering behind the curtain, accessing a secret truth denied to others? If this is the case, then what does that reveal about our consumption habits, our collective appetite for intimacy, and our willingness to sacrifice accuracy for the sake of emotional intensity. Consider further. If tomorrow it were revealed that Jimin was never ill, that his absence was merely circumstantial, how would the public react? Would disappointment set in because the anticipated drama was missing? Would anger be redirected toward the media for fabricating tension? Or would relief be overshadowed by frustration that the story was less captivating than expected? These possibilities should unsettle us, for they expose how deeply conditioned we have become to equate worth with drama. The architecture of modern media thrives on this very conditioning. Algorithms reward content that provokes outrage, sadness, or suspicion more than they reward calm truths. Should we, therefore, be surprised that unverified claims rise to prominence faster than verified reports? Should we not confront the uncomfortable fact that audiences, through their clicks and shares, actively construct the environment in which sensationalism flourishes? This leads to a final and perhaps most uncomfortable question. Is the audience itself complicit in creating hoaxes? When speculation about Jungkook's demeanor or Jimin's health spreads unchecked, is it only the fault of opportunistic creators, or do fans themselves play an active role in transforming speculation into reality? If we insist on perceiving hidden sorrow in every pause, every silence, every absence, are we not writing the very script that becomes tomorrow's headline? Thus, the responsibility rests with all who consume this story. Will readers continue to allow themselves to be guided by unverified emotion, or will they demand evidence before investing belief? Will they learn to differentiate between authentic concern and manufactured drama, or will they remain participants in a cycle where rumor repeatedly triumphs over truth? In confronting these questions,